You carry a belief about money that you've never consciously chosen, yet it runs your entire financial life. Robert Adams spoke rarely about money. When he did, it was to point at something deeper than economics, something hidden in the architecture of the self. This video is about that something. You don't lack money because of circumstances. You lack it because of a belief you can't see, a belief so embedded in your sense of self that it feels like truth. And here's what makes it dangerous. You defend it. You defend it with logic, with past evidence, with stories about your family, your education, your failures. You've built an entire identity around not having enough, and you call it being realistic. But realism, Adams would say, is just another word for agreement. Agreement with a thought. Agreement with a condition. Agreement with a self that was never real to begin with. Right now, as you read this, that belief is active. It's whispering. It's shaping how you feel about your bank account, your future, your worth. It's deciding what you'll allow yourself to want, to ask for, to receive. And the cruelest part? You think it's you. You think this limitation is who you are, woven into your personality, your fate, your karma. You think scarcity is your story. But Adams taught something radical. You are not your story. You are the awareness in which the story appears. And if you are the awareness, if you are the space in which thoughts about money arise and dissolve, then how could any belief about money define you? It can't. But it does, because you believe it can. Most spiritual teachings ignore money. They treat it as distraction, as ego, as something beneath the seeker's concern. Adams didn't. He understood that until you see through the belief structure around money, you'll remain imprisoned by it. Not because money matters, but because belief does. This isn't about manifesting wealth. It's not about affirmations or visualization or raising your frequency. It's about seeing the invisible mechanism that keeps you in lack, no matter how hard you work, how much you learn, how many strategies you try. That mechanism is a single belief, a belief so quiet, so automatic, so intertwined with your identity that you've never questioned it. And until you do, nothing changes. You can read every book, attend every seminar, follow every guru. But if the belief remains unseen, you'll keep recreating the same financial reality, because the belief is the blueprint. Adams called this identification. You've identified with the one who doesn't have enough, the one who struggles, the one for whom money is always just out of reach. And identification, he said, is suffering, not because of what you lack, but because you've mistaken a thought for reality. So here's the question that will sit with you long after this video ends. What if your entire financial struggle is just a thought you've been loyal to? What if the person you think you are, the one with money problems, is not a person at all, but a pattern, a loop, a story the mind keeps telling because it's the only story it knows? And what if the moment you stop feeding that story with your attention, with your belief, with your agreement, it simply dissolves? Not because you fixed it, but because it was never solid to begin with. Adams didn't teach wealth, he taught freedom. And freedom begins the moment you stop defending the prison. If something in these words unsettled you, stay. The belief is about to show itself. Let's start with something uncomfortable. You think you want more money, but do you? Not on the surface. On the surface, of course you do. Everyone does. But underneath, in the quiet place where your real beliefs live, there's something else happening. There's a part of you that needs the struggle. Not consciously. You'd never admit it. But it's there. A quiet agreement with lack. A strange comfort in limitation. Because if you suddenly had everything you needed, who would you be? The identity you've built. The one shaped by not enough. would collapse. And the mind, Adams observed, will protect identity at any cost, even if that identity is suffering. This is the invisible mechanism. You don't reject money directly. You reject the version of yourself that would have money, because that version is unknown, and the unknown, to the mind, is death. So you stay loyal to the familiar, to the struggling self, to the one who barely makes it, to the one who works hard but never gets ahead. And you call this loyalty realism. But it's not realism. It's fear. Fear dressed as wisdom. Adams would sit in silence for long stretches during satsang, letting people feel the weight of their own thoughts. He rarely interrupted. He simply watched as seekers unraveled their own arguments. And when someone would finally ask about money, about bills, about survival, about the real world, he'd smile. Not because money wasn't real, but because the one worrying about it wasn't. "You are not the body-mind," he'd say. "So why are you defending its story?" This is where it gets tricky, because the mind will immediately counter, "But I have bills, I have responsibilities. I can't just pretend money doesn't matter." And Adams would agree. Money matters, within the dream. But you don't have to be in the dream while you handle it. You can pay the bill without believing you're the one who's broke. You can work without believing you're the one who's trapped. You can want more without believing you're the one who lacks. The belief isn't about money. It's about who you think you are when money is absent. And here's the revelation. That person, the broke one, the struggling one, the one who never has enough, is a character, a role, a mask the self is wearing. But you've worn it so long you think it's your face. Robert Adams taught that the self is always full, always whole, always complete. Not as a philosophy, as a fact. The self doesn't lack because it has no needs. It doesn't struggle because it has no story. It doesn't fear because it has no future. But when you identify as the body-mind, when you believe you are the character in the story, you inherit all the character's problems, including money. And once you inherit them, you defend them. You collect evidence. You replay memories. You build entire belief systems to justify why you don't have enough. But none of it is true. It's just a story. A very convincing, very persistent, very painful story. And the only reason it persists is because you keep narrating it. Adams didn't ask people to stop thinking about money. He asked them to stop being the one who thinks about money. And that's a completely different practice. It's not about detachment. It's about disidentification. You can still care. You can still plan. You can still work. But you stop believing that your worth, your safety, your identity depend on the outcome. Because they don't. They never did. The invisible belief is this: I am the one who lacks. And the moment you see it, not as truth, but as belief, it loses power. Not all at once, but slowly, quietly, like fog lifting at dawn. There's a type of poverty that has nothing to do with your bank account. It's the poverty of self. And it's far more devastating than financial lack, because it creates financial lack. Adams called it the false I. It's the voice that says, I'm the kind of person who struggles with money. I've always been bad with finances. Money just doesn't come easily to me. Notice how personal it is, how intimate, how true it feels. But here's the paradox. The more true it feels, the less true it is. Because truth doesn't need to be defended. Truth doesn't need evidence. Truth simply is. But beliefs, especially invisible ones, need constant reinforcement. So the mind collects proof. It remembers every financial failure. It forgets every success. It interprets neutral events as confirmations of lack. And slowly, Over years, the belief becomes a lens. Everything you see through it. A bill arrives, and you feel panic because the belief says, you can't handle this. An opportunity appears, and you hesitate because the belief says, this isn't for you. Someone offers help, and you refuse because the belief says, you have to do it alone. The belief shapes everything: decisions, emotions, actions, results. And because the results match the belief feels validated. But it's not validation. It's a loop. Adams once told a story, not a parable, just a quiet observation, about a man who came to satsang every week, always sitting in the back, always leaving early. One day Adams asked him why. The man said, I don't belong here. Everyone else seems to understand. I'm just not there yet. Adams looked at him for a long time. Then he said, you're right. You're not there yet. Because you keep insisting on being the one who's not there yet. The man left. He didn't come back for months. When he finally returned, he sat in the front. And when Adams asked him what changed, he said, I stopped defending my story. That's all it takes. Not enlightenment, not awakening, not years of practice. Just stopping. Stopping the narration. Stopping the agreement. Stopping the loyalty to the small self. But here's what makes it difficult. The belief feels like protection. It feels like humility, like realism, like self-awareness. I'm just being honest, you tell yourself. I'm just facing facts. But Adams would ask, whose facts? The facts of the self or the facts of the character? Because the self has no financial history, the self doesn't carry debt or trauma or failure. The self is untouched, but the character, the me, is nothing but history. It's a walking archive of past events, past wounds, past beliefs. And when you identify as the character, you carry that archive everywhere, into every job interview. Every negotiation, every decision about money. You carry the belief, I am limited. And the world, being a perfect mirror, reflects it back. Not because the world is cruel, but because the world is neutral. It simply shows you what you believe. Adams put it simply, the world is you pushed out. If you see scarcity, it's because you're being scarcity. If you see lack, it's because you're being lack, not as punishment, as feedback. The moment you stop being it, the moment you step out of the character and rest as the self, the world shifts, not magically, but naturally, because you're no longer defending the story of limitation. Here's the uncomfortable part. The belief that sabotaging your money isn't external. It's not your parents' fault. It's not society's conditioning. It's not even your past. It's your agreement now, in this moment. Right now, you're agreeing with it. Not with your words, but with your attention. Every time you think about money and feel contraction, you're feeding the belief. Every time you check your bank account with anxiety, you're strengthening it. Every time you tell yourself, I can't afford this, from a place of identity rather than simple fact, you're reinforcing the prison. Adams didn't teach positive thinking. He taught no thinking. Or more precisely, he taught resting as the awareness before thinking. Because in that space, the space before the thought I don't have enough arises, there is no lack. There's just presence, just being, just the silent fullness of what you are. And in that fullness, the belief has no ground. It can't survive in the light of awareness. It can only survive in the shadows of identification. So the practice isn't to fight the belief, or replace it, or affirm the opposite. The practice is to stop energizing it. When the thought I'm broke arises, don't argue with it. Don't believe it. Don't reject it. Just see it. See it as a thought, a passing cloud, a wave on the surface of the ocean, and then let it dissolve. Not because you did something, but because you stopped being someone. This is the secret Adams kept pointing to. The moment you stop defending the self's problems dissolve. Not all at once, but inevitably, because they were never real. They were only believed. Now here's the twist, the part that nobody talks about. Even if your financial situation doesn't change immediately, you change. You stop suffering over it. You stop carrying it like a weight. You stop letting it define you. You pay the bill, but you're not the one who's anxious. You make less money than you'd like, but you're not the one who's ashamed. You face limitation, but you're not in the limitation. You're in the space that holds it. And that space, that awareness, is unlimited. Adams lived simply. He didn't own much. He didn't chase wealth. But he wasn't poor. He was free. Free from the belief that I need anything to be whole. And that freedom, that is the real wealth. Because once you have it, you stop relating to money as survival and start relating to it as play. You stop needing it to validate you, to protect you, to prove you're enough. You simply use it, receive it, let it flow. And in that flow, scarcity dissolves. Not because you manifested abundance, but because you stopped manifesting lack. Remember the question from the beginning. What if your entire financial struggle is just a thought you've been loyal to? Now you're ready for the answer. It is. But not in the way the mind wants to hear it. The mind wants a technique, a method, a way to fix the belief and finally get the money. But Adams would say, there's nothing to fix, because there's no one broken. The struggle exists only as long as you believe in the struggler. The lack exists only as long as you believe in the one who lacks. And the moment you stop feeding that identity with your attention, the moment you rest as the awareness that has no story, the belief collapses, not because you destroyed it, but because you stopped building it. This is the invisible mechanism. You are the one creating the prison, not consciously, but energetically, through attention, through agreement, through identification. And the way out isn't through more doing. It's through less being someone, more resting as nothing, or as Adams would say, as the self that has no needs, no past, no future, no story, the self that simply is. And when you rest there, even for a moment, the belief about money loses its grip. Because in that rest, there's no one to convince, no one to prove, no one to defend. There's just the quiet fullness of being. And in that fullness, lack is impossible. Not because you have everything, but because you are everything. So the practice is simple, brutally simple. When the thought about money arises, when the fear comes, when the contraction happens, don't go into it. Don't become the one who's afraid. Just notice. Just see. Just be. And in that noticing, the thought loses power. Not because you rejected it, but because you didn't energize it. Adams once said, "The self doesn't need liberation. Only the false I does." So stop trying to liberate yourself. Stop trying to fix yourself. Stop trying to improve yourself. Just see through yourself. See that the one who lacks, the one who struggles, the one who never has enough, is a phantom. A convincing phantom. A persistent phantom. A painful phantom. But a phantom nonetheless. And the moment you see it as such, you're free. Not free to have more. Free from needing more. And in that freedom, money flows differently. Not because you manipulated it, but because you stopped blocking it. The belief was the block, and the belief only existed because you believed it. So where does that leave you? Right here, right now, with nothing to fix and everything to see. The invisible belief that's been sabotaging your money is simply this: I am the one who lacks. And the antidote isn't affirmation. It isn't strategy. It isn't effort. It's recognition. Recognition that you are not the one who lacks. You are the awareness in which the thought "I lack" appears. And awareness, the true self, lacks nothing. It never did. It never will. Robert Adams spent his life pointing at this. Not as philosophy, not as theory, but as direct experience. He'd sit in silence, radiating the fullness of being, and simply invite people to recognize what they already were. Not what they could become, but what they'd never stopped being. And when someone finally got it, when the identification dropped, even for a moment, their entire world would shift. Not because the world changed, but because they stopped being the one who saw lack. So this is the door. Not a teaching to memorize, not a practice to perfect, just a door. A door that's always open, always available, always here. The door of disidentification. You can walk through it now, or in an hour, or in a year. It doesn't matter, because the self isn't waiting. The self simply is. And when you're ready, when you're tired of defending the small self, tired of carrying the story, tired of believing in limitation, you'll stop. Not because you did something heroic, but because you finally saw the exhaustion of pretending to be someone who lacks. And in that seeing, the belief dissolves, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like fog burning off in the morning light. Adams didn't promise ease. He didn't promise wealth. He didn't promise anything external. He promised freedom. Freedom from the false I. Freedom from the story. Freedom from the belief that you are anything other than whole. And that freedom, once tasted, is worth more than any amount of money. Because it's the end of seeking, the end of defending, the end of the invisible prison. You are not the one who lacks. You never were. And the moment you see that, truly see it, everything changes. Not because you got something, but because you stopped losing something that was never real. The belief is invisible, but so is the truth. And the truth is simply this: you are already whole.